Daf Kuf Beis Amid Beis at the bottom. And yesterday we saw several cases where Rav and Shmuel have a machlokas of whether the malacha prohibiting that action is bona or makab patish, construction or completing. And we're going to say makab patish means completing a vessel, but really it could be completing any form of completing something or making something usable. The machlokas is a matter of great halachic discussion, because do they disagree with each other entirely? In other words, that it's either bone or makab patish. Can some things be both? As what are the parameters of makab patish, the completion of something? Is it only in construction? Is it in other things as well? Can something be both makab patish and bone, or is it either or? Not our place right now to get into the depth of the halacha, but wanted you to know that this is the basis of a great deal of halachic discourse. So we have Rav saying that these cases were all boneh, construction, and Shmuel saying it is makab patish. We have the last case here. This 4 lines from the bottom. When somebody is either smoothing out a stone to make it into brick shape so he can use it, or putting these ridges in it for construction. So Achvi Lebiyade, so Rabbi Yochanan showed Rabbi Nassan that by hand that it was makab patish, which means the strike of a hammer. So he showed him something like that. But in our Mishnah it says either or. It says hamasates, somebody who's chiseling a stone, or makab patish, or striking a hammer. So it seems they're separate. So the Gemara says it's not either or, it's one. Emo, what it means to say is hamasates hamakab patish, somebody who chisels away at a stone by makab patish, completing it. Tashama. Hakodeach, somebody who drills a hole. Now, Rashi points out that the word drilling a hole for the sake of using the hole, fulfilling it, is called kodeach. Somebody making a hole for the purpose of the hole is nokev. So kodeach, somebody that drills a hole, in other words, for something else to be put in there, kol shu chayiv. Any amount of a hole is going to be chayiv. So according to Rav, it looks like he's making a constructive hole, and therefore he says that there's a prohibition of bonnet construction, and this is construction because even though he's going to fill it with something, but he's making it for construction, so the hole is a constructive act of bonnet. But according to Shmuel, that these are all included in makab patish. Well, this isn't. He's not done yet. This is not the end of the malacha.
Excuse me, just to make sure I'm on the right track. So what the Gemara wants to say now is makab patish isn't itself an av malacha.
Well, that we know already. We know
it,
that already from the Mishnah in Klal Gadol. One of the 39 malachas is makab patish. The question is, where does that apply versus boneh?
But it seems like it's being used as you did this malacha, and in so doing, you finished the product. Excuse me, finished the product. So you're over. It's also makab patish. Is that what it's saying? In other words, if I drilled a hole and that was it, my intent was to drill a hole. I drilled a hole, and now I have a hole. When I finished drilling the hole, that was makab patish. So it's two things. I drilled, and I
So,
was makim b'patish.
so
Is that what the Gemara is saying? I'm just asking.
So complete the question because I'm not sure how.
Are we saying that makim b'patish is not in and of itself a malacha separate from several other malachas that could complete the process of whatever you're doing?
So you're proposing, I think, in your question, one opinion that I mentioned before, which is that they are simultaneous. Anytime you do construction, you're doing construction. On top of that, if it's completing the vessel, the item, the whatever it may be, that you're also going to transgress completing it. That is one version that the Rishonim offer, and is brought in halacha. The other opinion is no, that it's either or. And in each action, the Rav and Shmuel are arguing: is this a completion or is this construction? And that's what the Gemara is asking here. Either way, the Gemara is asking here, according to Shmuel, that he sees all of these as makeh b'patish, a completion of sorts. In this place where he's planning to put a peg, making a hole, but he's planning to put something else in there to fill it. So then that's not makeh b'patish. It's not completed yet. There's still more that needs to be done to this very part of the construction.
I mean, is it wrong to say the makeh b'patish is also it's talui and das in a certain aspect? I mean, when the workman looks at it and says, "Okay, I'm done polishing that stone," and says, "Yep, that's it, we're done," then, I mean, that last.
Well, it may be that he doesn't plan to do something, so it's up to his intentions. But it may be up to what is typical. Typically, that you're done at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Typically, you're done, so that you're done. But you're not. Again, that's correct. That when somebody in their mind has finished something, and now they're done, and they did the last bit of work, that could be makeh b'patish. Makeh b'patish, this is pretty vague, and a lot of debate goes into where it applies and what are the parameters for it applying. Does it have to be only in construction? Is it in other things? Is it in a malacha, only something that is a prohibited, one of the other 38 malachos? Is it even in non-malacha? And Mara says, the baze beramtza, the parazala, v'shavke, begave, the haina gemar malacha. Says, no, it is, and this is something we do sometimes with, putting up a picture frame or something. You make the hole in the wall at the same time as you're inserting the hook that's going to remain as in the wall as your hook. So it's not you make a hole and then you put something in it. The very same time that you're making the hole, you're also putting the peg in, the nail in, which is going to remain there. And so you've done both construction as well as makeh b'patish. And Shmuel says that you're completing, so it's makeh b'patish, and Rav says that it's bona. And as we mentioned, it could be that it's both. So the Mishnah said, "Zeh haklal." This is the rule. Any malacha that's being done, and the malacha is meant to last. That then yechayev. Zeh haklal l'siyamai. What is that including for us? L'siyamai the chakafiza bekava. If somebody did not complete the work, somebody has a piece of wood, really a block of wood that they're shaping into. They're shaping it into a measuring cup, and they want to get to a pint, and they're only up to a half a pint. So they still have to dig out some and remove some of the center, but it is usable as is. That is going to be considered bona, even though that is going to be considered malacha, even though that it's not done yet, because he still plans on and will complete and take out more. But it is usable as is, and that's enough. Because it is kept at this size also. Some people do have a half pint. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says also somebody who strikes the kornis, the sada. So the Gemara is going to ask Micah of it. What is he doing? So again, as we were talking, as we mentioned yesterday in the Mishnah, the smith working went like this. You had your hammer, you had the sadon, which was anvil, if that helps you for the English word. It's basically the platform upon which you put the metal, and that served as the background to the hammer blow, so that when the metal was pressured against that anvil, against the sadon, it flattened it and made it to a point if you were making something sharp, or it shaped the metal into a peg or into a lock, depending on what it is you were trying to do with the softened metal. So sometimes you would strike just the sadon itself without the metal there. So Micah of it. So it's a practice blow. So Bnei Rachba challenged that. Somebody who's watching, apprenticing, and he's watching how to do smith work just on the case, just so that he can learn. That would also be a Torah prohibition? Of course not. So rather, Abai and Rava both say, "Shekain meradi tasei mishkan oisenkein." The people that were making the metals flat in the and smooth in the Mishkan, they would do it that way. And Rashi explains that they would have multiple hammer blows to flatten the hammer, so that if there was a little piece of metal sticking out, it wouldn't pierce the thin layer of metal that they were going to use to cover vessels or the beams. Others have a different interpretation. They were making it smooth. The
thread itself.
Sorry?
The threads, no? The tassim?
The tas, they'd make tas for different things as well. I mean, the tzitz was a tas. There were different things that were made as a tas. The gold threads were also tas. Yeah. They'd have to first make the gold very thin and then cut it. Either way, there were many things that were made. The tzipui for the krashim was made out of tasim. The covers for the beams. So in any case, Rashi learns that it was done really for the benefit of the hammer being smooth. Others learn it was really for the sadon to be smooth. Either way, that's the way it was done in the Mishkan, so therefore it's a malacha. Tiny nami hachi, indeed we have a brayso like this from Shimon Gamliel loy ma'afa maka kornis ala sadon b'shas malacha chayiv shekem eradei tasi Mishkan oisenkein. That anybody strikes the hammer onto the anvil, onto the sadon, which is the bottom platform upon which they were doing the smith work. That is the malacha itself. That is a transgression, a Torah prohibition, because that's the way it was done in the Mishkan. So that was construction, and really we'll see some more about it. We touched upon where, if at all, construction applies to vessels. We saw construction is something constructive in even preparatory work, in building something attached to the ground, and the machlokes of when makah b'patish applies, the final hammer blow versus construction. Now we go into plowing. Hachoresh kol shehu, somebody who plows any amount. Hamanachesh, somebody who prunes. It could be weeding, pruning. A makarsim, somebody who takes off the dried out or not growing properly fruit from a tree, which allows the other fruit growing to have more of the nutrients from the tree, more of the sap, and hopefully grow better. Mamazari, and somebody takes off the young shoots from the tree also, so that the rest of it grows well. Kol shehu, any amount of such pruning and weeding that somebody does is chayiv. That's a transgression of Shabbos. Hamalakit eitzim, somebody who gathers twigs. So imla takein. So if he's doing so for it to grow better, to clean up the mess so that it grows better. So kol shehem, any amount, is going to be transgression. Imla hesek, but if he's doing so in order to gather firewood, so kedei lavashal beitzakala, as we saw earlier, it has to be enough that he can cook a chicken egg that's scrambled in a pot. So not much needed in that fire. Hamalakit asavim, somebody's gathering grasses. So hay. So im latakein, if he's cleaning up the field, kolshu, any amount. Im lebehema, if it's to feed the animal. So then it's kamlei pigadi, then it's the smallest amount, which is a mouthful for a goat. The Gemara says, plowing a little bit, what's that for? Lamai chazi. Chazi lebizra. You can put in one seed of a pumpkin seed into it, and it'll begin to grow. So that's a small pumpkin patch. The bizar the kra. The chavasag have a mishkan shekein roy lekalach echod shel samman. And in the mishkan, it was similar that they would make a small small patch for some of the dyes, some of the spice, some of the plants for the dyes. Amanachash amaraket amakarsem amazari. Tanarabana. At Toilish Olshin, somebody pulls out a certain grass, a mazare zeradin, or some reeds when they're soft. Imlachila. So if he's pulling these out because he plans on eating them, so these greens or these shoots, so grogeres, then the minimum measure is going to be grogeres. It's going to be the size of a fig, which we always know that's the minimum amount for malacha Shabbos when it's regarding food. Imla behema, if he's wanting to feed an animal with it, so kumaloi piyagdi, the minimum amount is a goat's mouth full. Imla hesek, if he plans to use it as kindling, so kedei lavashal beitzakala, it's enough. He has to harvest enough or pull out enough to make a small fire again for a scrambled chicken egg in a pot. Im liyapas is a karka, if he's trying to fix the field in order to so that it'll grow better, whatever is planting there is going to grow better. Kol shehein, any amount that he pulled up is beneficial to the field, and that's going to be chorish, that's going to be plowed. So Gemara says, okay, and it's true, your intention may be in pulling up this grass, this weed, this shoot, in order to feed yourself or feed your animal or for kindling. But everybody agrees the last part also is happening, which is that you're softening the ground and cleaning the ground in order to make it beneficial for the planting. Whether you already planted or you're going to plant, it's beneficial for planting. So, are the rest not also going to at least secondarily prepare the field? No, this is talking about where it's not worthy of being a field. It's in a swamp, so you're never going to plant there. It's not worthy of planting, and you're pulling it up. So therefore, it's only for food. But indeed, if it was in your garden, so even though you intend for kindling for animal feed or for your own food, it's going to be secondarily a malacha of preparing the ground for planting, whether you already planted and it makes it better, or you're going to plant. So that's what Rabbi Yosef says. It's in Agam. Abaya Amar, however, Abaya says, no, it can even be in a field and not in a swamp. Kagoin, the lekemachavit, because he's not intending. He's not intending for that. So Gemara says, wait, that even if you don't intend, and Rabbi Shimon says that generally we say that you need intention in your actions. So in order to transgress, you have to intend to do the prohibition. Over here, you're not intending to do that. You're intending to get yourself some food. So who cares that the field gets better? We know Rabbi Shimon says that that's only true by Davashen, but it's not psik reisha. It's not absolutely going to happen. But if it's absolutely going to happen, then it counts as your action. And we explained this a few times, that either we look at it as if that is your intention, because it's inevitable, so obviously you do want it, or the reason is because the action is yours, because it'll absolutely happen, so the action is attributed to you. In any case, this is a psik reisha. If you're taking out the weeds or the shoots, whether you're trying to eat it or feed it or use it as kindling, nevertheless, the field is going to become better. And so it's happening. It's inevitable it's going to happen. So it should be your actions. The Gemara says, it's not in his own field. It's in someone else's. And therefore, he just wants to eat. He doesn't care about whether the field is improved for plowing or not. Tues over here enters a discussion where we get, anytime we talk about psik reisha, the obligations that or the responsibility you have for actions, even though it's not your intention, but it'll absolutely happen, that it becomes yours. Well, does it have to be that I want it to happen? Does it have to be even if I'm indifferent to it happening or not, but I don't mind it? Or would there be an exemption at least if I don't want it to happen? Psik reisha v'lo nichale. That's the strongest, which is it's absolutely going to happen, but I don't want it to happen. So that's perhaps there it does not attribute to me, especially if we understand the reason is because you can't say you don't want it if it's absolutely going to happen. Well, I actually don't want it. So maybe it's not attributed to me and doesn't count as a malacha. Or, and it seems to be our Gemara seems to be proof that even if I'm indifferent to it happening, I don't mind it happening. I don't care if my friend's field is somehow improved. So it seems like it's indifferent, and yet we say that it will not be attributed to you because you don't want it to happen. Lengthy Tosas here, various different opinions. But here's the opening to that discussion of when psik reisha, when we say that it's attributed to you and it's your action on account of it's absolutely going to happen, and you can't say I didn't intend for that. You didn't intend for it, but you knew it's going to happen because it absolutely is going to happen. So that is for sure true if you want it. The discussion is, what about if you're indifferent? What about if you don't want it? And there are various opinions in Tosas and other Rishonim and in Halacha.
So what I'm understanding is, go back to my question about about Makeh Patish being totally in Das. So it's Maleches Machsheves. So the question is, do I need Maleches Machsheves for I guess a psik reisha, or do I? Because what you're describing here is it's not Maleches Machsheves in terms of improving the field.
No. I think your question is, let me just make sure I get your question. Earlier you asked, at what point is it completion of an object when I'm doing construction, a house or whatever it is? When is it completion? When I'm done, right? When in my mind, I'm not doing any more, even if it's not really complete. So that was your question before. And that should still be the prohibition of Makeh Patish. That would not be relevant to here. There for sure I want the construction that I'm doing. It's just a question if I plan to do another step or not. I sand this down. Yeah, so sanding down something to make it smooth, that would be a Makeh Patish. Unless I also want to varnish it. So maybe that's not yet Makeh Patish, not yet completion. And you say, no, I'm happy with it unvarnished. I just want it to be smooth. But it's for sure my intention to do that. our case of a lack of intention is where I'm not even trying to varnish. I'm not trying to smooth something out. I'm not doing that at all. I'm just trying to clean my shoes, so I'm rubbing it on the floor, and it happens to smooth it. So what?
But here, just here, if I improve my friend's field, that's not maleches machshavas. That's not what I'm after. I'm after the fruit, or I'm after the produce, or whatever.
Right.
I'm not clearing.
It's a psik ratio. It's absolutely going to happen, and you know that.
So you're saying that psik ratio doesn't need maleches machshavas?
No. Psik ratio, we said, counts as maleches machshavas. You can't tell me it's not my intention, but you're doing it.
But if you said if it's indifferent, it's still psik ratio.
No, I said Tues has different opinions about that. That's starting on our case over here. What's the meaning of this Gemara opens the conversation of how far to go with my actions. If it's absolutely going to happen, but I'm not sure. But I don't necessarily want it. Do we still say that's your action?
Right.
That's your intent. Look, you can't say I'm putting my foot on the pedal of the gas pedal, but I don't want combustion to happen. Right? There for sure, you do want it to happen because that's what you're doing, because otherwise a car won't move. But what happens if you actually don't want it? But you need to do it for whatever you're trying to do it for whatever other reason. I'm obviously not in a car in Shabbos to say, but in any action. So that's the idea. Psik ratio over here, it's absolutely going to happen, but nevertheless, Abai Rava will exempt him here on account of that it's in somebody else's field. And the question is that because it doesn't, they're indifferent, or is it because they specifically don't want it to happen? Either way. The next Mishnah is writing. And in writing, we're going to get into a partial work. The concept of I did part of the malacha, how much is the minimum malacha, and I intended at first to do more, but then I stopped. What's the malacha? So somebody who writes 2 letters, so that's the definition, the minimum definition of having written something. Bein b'yamina, bein b'smayla, whether he wrote with his right hand or his left hand. Bein m'shem echad, bein m'shtei shemas, regardless if it's the same letter or different letters. Bein m'shtei samaniyos, whether it's 2 different inks. B'chol lashon, in any language. So if he wrote an aleph and then an a, chayiv will transgress. Rav Yossi says actually 2 letters is really based on in the Mishkan that they would, in order to know which beams went next to which, they would mark them. So it's really a marking. So any form of marking would be chayiv. Because they would mark them to know this one goes next to this one. Rav Yehuda says we find that you can have a small name that came from a larger name, such as Shem Mishimon. Somebody intended at first to write the word Shimon, which is a Shin Mem, and then Ayin Vav Nun. But in doing so, he stopped after 2 letters, which spells the word Shem. Or Mishmuel. He intended to write the word Shmuel, which is Shin Mem Aleph of Lamed, and then he stopped after Shin Mem, which is Shem. Or Noach Minochor. He intended to write the name Nochor, and stopped after 2 letters, which spells Noach. Or Dan Medaniel. He intended to write the word Dan, the name Dan, and Daniel, and stopped after 2 letters, which is Dan. Gad Megadiel, or he intended to write Gadiel, and he wrote God. After 2 letters, he stopped, and it spelled the word. So what Rav Yehuda is saying a couple of things here. First of all, that 2 letters has to make up a word, it seems, or a name, because otherwise you always can stop after 2 letters, and you did 2 letters. seemingly it has to have some. It can't be nonsensical. The other thing the Gemara is going to point out is that he has words that would require a final letter, because shame has a final mem, not just a regular mem. Or dan midaniel. If I was writing Daniel, I would write a regular nun. The final nun is a long nun, and dan would require a long nun, and yet he's holding him responsible for writing, even though that he didn't write the appropriate type of letter. And the Gemara is also going to talk about what happens if you write two of the same letter. Okay, so writing with your right hand, that's obviously going to be held responsible because that's the way you write. Why are you held liable for writing with the left hand? That's not a normal way of writing. Well, we'll talk about a lefty. But they have a small today, came in the Kollel Alma. So then what do I need to tell you that? So if it's a lefty, so that his left hand is like everybody else's right hand. That's the normal way of writing for him, so that it will count. And he's going to be responsible for the left. But he's not going to be responsible for the right. So it's just the same. It's just a matter of which one is his writing to him. Elam Abaye, so rather Abaye offers, we're talking about somebody who's ambidextrous, and so he can write both with his right and left hand, and he will be responsible, even if he prefers one over the other, he'll be responsible for both. Rabbi Yaakov, brother Bas Yaakov, Rabbi Yaakov, the son of the daughter of Yaakov, Amar, he says, Hamani Rabbi Yossi. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, who said in our Mishnah that the basis of writing is not really writing something that's writing in the sense of language, or rather it's markings in order to know which being goes next to the other. So it doesn't have to make sense. It's just a marking, and even with your left hand you can do that. And therefore, even with your left hand, you're responsible for it because it still makes the marking. You need to know, okay, that mark is the one on the left, is the one that goes there. The Gemara says, no, that can't be. Well, the beginning of the Mishnah can't be Rabbi Yossi because we then say this is what Rabbi Yossi adds. Kula Rabbi Yossi says, no, the whole thing is Rabbi Yossi. And first we say a general halacha, and then he adds the principle that it's because in the Mishkan, all they were doing was marking the beams to tell you which one goes next to the other. So you don't need a letter. You don't need a properly formed letter. And therefore, even with your left hand, as long as it's a marking that you can recognize to tell you which beam goes where. Rav Yehuda, so Rav Yehuda said, Metzinu Shem Katem Hashem Gadol. We can have a smaller name from a larger name, a smaller word from a larger word if the person stopped after two letters and it spelled something. So then you have a transgression of writing, even though, because he wrote two letters, even though the intention at start was to write a full name. What we see is that according to Rav Yehuda, that it's only responsible. He's only going to be held responsible, only going to be chayiv, and has to bring a sin offering for transgressing writing on Shabbos if he wrote two different letters, God, Dan, Noach, etc. But if it's one, for instance, he was writing Sheshach, and he wrote Shesh, and other words like that, where he wrote two of the same letter. So he didn't change it. So since it's two of the same letter, even if it is in a word, it will not count because all of his examples were two different letters. Matani we learned va'asa achas. So the brisa is going to go into when you have to bring a sin offering for transgressing something inadvertently. It did one of the mitzvahs. So the pasuk is a little wordy there. It says, if somebody sinned, nefesh kisecha b'shkaga, if he sinned inadvertently, mikol mitzvahs Hashem, of all the mitzvahs of Hashem, asher lo te'asena, which are not to be done, va'asa, and he did, me'achas, of one of them, mehena, of these. Very wordy. It could have said nefesh kisechet abishgaga, somebody has sinned inadvertently, mi mitzvahs Hashem, of the commandments of Hashem, asher lo te'asenu, which are not to be done. Here it says many times, of. I'm telling you that it doesn't have to be all the mitzvahs. It doesn't have to be even me'achas. Even it doesn't even have to be a complete transgression. Even if it's some of the transgression, me'achas, me'hena of these. The Gemara says a drash. The Brisa says a drash. Tanya ba'asa achas. He did one. Perhaps you have to do the entire thing in order to transgress. You write an entire name. Or you have to weave an entire garment. Or you have to do an entire sifter. Meaning you created an entire item. That's why it says of one of the transgressions, of one of the things that you're not supposed to be done. That means you don't have to complete it, but even doing a part of it, a minimum amount of it would also count. Okay, so perhaps that's even if I made wrote one letter, or wove only one weave, and in the loom, which is the weaving tool. So as you remember, it has the vertical threads that are that are locked in, and you throw the heddle back and forth to create the horizontal threads, and something has to lift every other thread, so that when you throw the heddle across, the thread would go between each. So that's the batei nirin. That's that support that lifts up each one. So maybe each one of the threads. And we said that in order to transgress, you have to make at least 2 batei nirin. And if you did only one bayis, banapa, if you made a sifter, it would be sufficient. Talmud, with one thread. Talmud loyma achas. That's why it says one. One is to tell you that it has to be a complete one. Something has to be done. You have to have created something constructive. So it would have to be at least 2 threads vertically in order for it to be a weave. It would have to be 2 letters at least, so that you made some sort of word. So what would it be? So the Brisa says you would have to have written a small name from a big name, even though you intended to write something greater, but you wrote 2 letters enough that it spells something small, a small name. Shem, Shimon, like the name, the word Shem from Shimon. Mishmuel, similarly, if he intended to write Shmuel. Noach mi Nochor, Dan mi Daniel, Gad mi Gadil, like we saw in the Mishnah. He wrote 2 letters that spelt a name, even though that he intended to, at first, to write something larger, a bigger name. Rabbi Yehuda, however, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, even if he only wrote 2 letters, as long as it's one name, even if it was 2 of the same letter, chayiv, kagoyin, sheish, teis, reir, gag, chach, various 2-letter words, and Rashi gives you the list of which words they would have been coming from. In any case, that's sufficient, even though he wrote 2 gimels for Gag, for roof. On Rabbi Yossi, so Rabbi Yossi said, "V'chim mishum kosev v'chayev." Somebody like that is writing something. You don't need to write anything. Writing is not on account of writing words, but rather he's making a marking to tell you where the beams go. So any sort of marking. Shekain Roshma Krasha Mishkan Leda Ezu Ben Zuket, because that's the way they did it in the Mishkan, to tell you which beam goes next to which. Lefikach Sarat Srida Achas Al Shnei Nesarim, even if he made a single scratch on 2 beams to tell you they go together, or Shtei Saritas Al Nesar Echad, or 2 scratches on one beam to tell you that this beam is beam number 2, chayiv, he's going to be chayiv. Reb Shimon Omer, Reb Shimon says va'asa achas. It says, and the person who transgressed inadvertently transgress, he did one of the things. Perhaps he won't transgress until he did the entire thing. He wrote the entire word, or he wove the entire garment. Or he made the entire the entire weave for the sifter. So again, he has he made all the vertical lines and all the in the batei nirin in the loom. Therefore, the pasuk says and ends with, if he transgressed of these, of one of them, to tell you that it doesn't have to be the complete thing. Even part is going to transgress. But if it would say just of them, of one of them, I may have thought that perhaps that it would also be he's going to transgress even if he did one letter, one weave, meaning one thread going through. He only set up one part of the loom, one thread in the vertical lines of the loom. Therefore, it says one. It has to be something complete. Okay, it's not completely your intention, what you first intended, but it has to be enough that it's something that is it can count on its own as something, as a significant. Okay, so what would be that case? It has to be something that you make that's similar to that, something like that would be kept, would be worthy of maintaining. Rabbi Yossi says, "Va'asa achas, va'asa heina." He says the drash of the last two words is like this. It says, and if he will do of one of these, so there's a double of, and there's one and these. So is it one single one or these multiple? So he says it means like this. There are times that transgressing multiple transgressions, you only transgress one. As we saw earlier in the Masechta, what this means is, I forgot it was Shabbos. I knew I am not allowed to cook on Shabbos. I'm not to harvest on Shabbos. I'm not allowed to grind on Shabbos. I'm not allowed to knead a dough on Shabbos. But I did all of that because I forgot it was Shabbos. And I thought it was Sunday morning. I said, you know what, I'm going to make a fresh bread. And I go out and I pick some wheat and I grind the kernels and I make some flour and I add water and I let it rise and then I bake it. And then everything, but it was a single lapse. So I only bring one chatas offering. So back to our Mishnah. This is the end of the brisa, but Rabbi Yehuda says that even you transgress and you chayiv chatas, even if you wrote one word, two letters of the same exact letters, you'd still be chayiv. And yet in our Mishnah, it seems that you have to have different letters. The Gemara says, "L'kashi al day or the rabbi." No, it depends. One is his statement of his own opinion, and one is a restatement of his teacher. The time we learned Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Gamliel, because Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rabbi Gamliel, even if you wrote two letters that are one name, meaning the same letter, two shins, two gimels to spell Gag, Sheish, etc. Ve'en shem echad chayiv kagon sheish, like the word sheish, which means six, taste, give, rar, gag, chach. Rabbi Shimon, Haina Tanakama. Rabbi Shimon is the same as the first opinion. So back to the brisa, Rabbi Shimon is saying exactly the same as the first opinion, which said that you have to write two different letters. Two olives would be a question whether it will count. The Tanakama saw aleph the Ezracha lemechayev. The Tanakama says no, that two olives would not count because it's the same letters. But it's not even a word. Rabbi Shimon Savak even the Isei begalturi ba'alma chayev, and he says no, that it's true, it's not a word, but it does show up as markings or in an amulet, and so therefore it does count as a writing. Therefore, Reb Shimon says Yechai. Lamer Reb Shimon lechumra. So you're telling me Reb Shimon is being strict? V'atanya hakudeach kolshu chayev amagara kolshu ama'abed kolshu hatzar b'klitzura kolshu. Reb Shimon amachi ktechas kulei. Achi yigaras kulei. Achi abedes kulei. Achi yatzes kulei. We can't say that Reb Shimon is being strict because we have a brisa clearly saying he's being lenient. Because in regards to bona, construction or fixing something, we saw any amount you're going to be chayiv, whether you're shaping something or drilling into something, or you're tanning some leather, any amount, or you're sculpting something. Either way, any amount will be chayiv. And Rabbi Shimon says, no, you have to do a complete vessel. So to here, Rabbi Shimon would need to be more strict, not lenient. El Rabbi Shimon ha salashmina. So rather, what Rabbi Shimon and the Bryce is adding is to say Hashem kuloi, to write the entire thing. Tomorrow we'll continue with the Gemara saying no, that can't be, because he says that you don't have to do the whole thing. So again, we have just in conclusion, we have Rabbi Yehuda. We had a contradiction of Rabbi Yehuda, and we said Rabbi Yehuda himself holds that you have to write two different letters, and in the name of his teacher Rabbi Gamliel, even two of the same letters, but they would have to be a word. We had Rabbi Yossi says it doesn't even have to be a word. It just has to be markings. We had one opinion in the Gemara that wanted to say that it doesn't have to be a word, but it has to be two letters that would go together either as a marking or an amulet. And now tomorrow we'll see Rabbi Shimon who says something between you don't need a complete word, but it needs to be a word, and we'll see what that is.